Good afternoon, everybody. How are you all doing? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 3 of the best ways to use Reverb in FL Studio. Now, there's like tons of different ways that you can use Reverb, especially with trap beats, but I'm going to pick these 3 based off of a few things, like how many times I use these techniques. Like, I use pretty much at least 2 of them in every single beat that I make. And the best part about it is that you don't need any fancy plugins. We're using stock plugins in this tutorial, so no budget required. So yeah, let's dive into the 3 best ways to use Reverb in FL Studio. Before we do, actually, stick around to the end of the video. I've got a quick announcement to make. So let's do this. Now, before I dive straight into them, I want you to know a few things, and I want to explain to you exactly why all of these 3 strategies are going to be so easy to use. Now, the first reason is because I'm going to tell you exactly when to use them. It's good to know different strategies, but if you don't know like when to use them, what decisions to make whilst you're adding like effects, then it's kind of useless. You know, putting like reverb on an 808 is like pointless. That's just a brash example. We ain't no amateurs around here. This ain't rookie hour. This ain't amateur hour. That's the one. I'm going to show you exactly how and when to use these. And yeah, let's dive into the first one. Now, the first strategy is basically to soften a sound. Now, if you have like any of those kind of flute type melodies when you're using sort of kind of sharp leads, and it's the right sound, but it kind of sounds a bit too sharp, and it's kind of hurting the ear whilst you listen to it, or taking too much attention away, then that is the perfect time to use it. Okay, so this is the beat that I'm using, and I've thrown in this lead during like the B part of the melody, which sounds like this. Okay, it's a really dry sound, and I kind of liked that. I wanted to keep that kind of vibe, which if you think about reverb, that's not really like what you'd go for. However, if you have a sound that kind of sounds really sort of harsh, then what you can do is add your reverb plugin, and all you're going to do is turn the decay right down. Turn it right down to nothing. Okay, stay with me, I'm not talking nonsense right here. Turn the decay right down. This is some boss level stuff, some secret sauce. It's not secret sauce, but anyway, turn that knob right down. You want to turn the bass fairly low. You don't want to have like any low frequencies coming through with that sound. And then you're going to turn the wet up quite high. You don't have to do too much with the early reflection, just leave that, and then just play around with the high and low cut, and then just kind of test it and see how it sounds. So let me just show you like a before and after. It's very subtle, it is very subtle, but in the context of a whole beat, it makes a lot more sense. Okay, so as you can hear, like there's no like tail. It doesn't like sound like it's sat in a room. The reverb just basically kind of sits kind of on top of it whilst the original part's playing. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm doing my best. All right, I'm trying to help you guys. But the main thing is just to turn up the wet knob, right? You know, maybe even full. It just depends on what sounds good for that sound. But you want it fairly high. This can go wherever. And another key thing is to make sure that the decay is right at 0, because the decay is what's going to give it that length if you turn it up. So leave that to 0. Depending on your personal preference, play with the size of the room. The size basically just means like how large the sound is. If you want like a real tight reverb, then just turn the size down. If you want a loose sound, turn the thing up. Turn the thing up. It really is self-explanatory. However, that is how you do it. So wet knob high, dry knob normal, decay knob right down, and then just toy with the rest of the effects in the plugin. And yeah, that is the first tip. So if you're using woodwind sounds, if you're using lead sounds that sound too harsh, slap a reverb on there and get that dry reverb, that really short tight reverb on there. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, and this is more of a mixing tip than it is like adding effects to a specific sound. If you have a really simple beat that has hard drums, and like you don't know how these kind of mainstream sounds that are stupidly simple, like for example Bop by DaBaby or Shug by DaBaby, any Jetson made beat that's in the charts right now, that has that real simple style to it, but it just sounds full, and you don't know how. And one really good way to fill out the beat without it sounding muddy, without it sounding crazy, is by adding reverb to all of the drums. Sounds crazy, I know. So all you're gonna do is send all of your drums Obviously you're gonna have to put them all in the mixer first. If you don't know how to do that, then you probably should watch a beginner tutorial, because we're not in an amateur hour anymore, just playing. But anyway, make sure you've got all your drums in the mixer, and then send them to their own mixer track. So I've already done this. I've named mine drums. All I did was highlight all of them by holding Control, left click, and just drag until you've got all the drums selected. And then come to your drums mixer bus, right click it at the bottom right here, and then just select one so you can see, and then click route to this track only. Okay, this track only, and then all the sounds will run through that bus. Once you've got all the sounds in that bus, then you can add your reverb effect. So let me do that right now. So now when you play the drums, they should sound terrible. Okay, it sounds awful. It sounds like it's not even a real reverb. It sounds stupid, and that's not what you want to do. So never put it on and just leave it. That's rule number one. If anyone's doing that right now, then stop making beats. Okay, that's a bit harsh, but so add on your reverb, and the key thing right here, and the reason why it sounds really like nasty and cloudy, is because we need to turn the low cut up, and we need to turn the high cut right down to nothing. Turn it right off, zero. Zilch, the square root of jack. Once you've got that down, then we can come over here. You can kind of play with the decay if you want to. You don't really have to, but if you want to, you can. Then we're going to come over here and play with the damp knob. No homo. The damp knob, the higher you turn the damp knob, the more sort of high end of the reverb you're going to get. The lower you turn it, the less. So like, if you want it to be really subtle, turn it quite far down. But again, it's all personal preference. It depends on the context of the beat, but you know, it is what it is. So I'll play the beat, play with some of the parameters. Okay, we're almost there. We have one more thing to do, and I'll explain in a second, but I want to show you what I've just done right now. So again, make sure you've got the high cut right down, play with the low cut knob, you know, around here's fine. Turn the decay to whatever you like, and then I just basically played with the damp knob, and I played with the wet knob. They're the two main things to consider. So get the damp knob sorted out first, then come down to the wet knob, and that's just going to lower the reverb effect. Now that I'm happy with that, you want to come over to the mix bus, and you want to turn this down as well. You want it to be super subtle, but this kind of effect will kind of be picked up subconsciously, if that makes sense. It's kind of it's one of those sort of peripheral sounds that you don't really hear, but if it's not there, then it makes a big difference. You know what it is. So don't be that idiot that's like, oh, it's a simple beat, I don't need any effects. Don't be that guy. You got to think about these things. So go ahead and turn this down until you have got a real subtle reverb on there. And again, just do it to your own liking. You don't have to do it at a specific percentage. I don't do numbers. I just do it by ear. So yeah, let me just do that and then show you how it sounds. Alright, so as you can see, you can barely hear it now. But again, it's just about having that real subtle reverb on there. That's all the subtleties that you need within the mixing. Kind of keep that in mind whilst you're mixing like every sound. Just make sure that you're doing subtle changes. But yeah, that is tip number 2. Technique number 3 is to add heavy reverb, but properly. We don't want any of that cloudy, messy, low end. You don't want any of that fuzzy sounding reverb. And it's super easy to achieve just with the stock plugins as well. You don't need any expensive stuff. And now in terms of when you would use this, I would recommend using this on the melody. Okay, I'd use this on the melody, any individual sound in the melody, or the melody as a whole. It just depends on, you know, again, the context of the beat. So I'm going to give you an example in this beat. So I've got this sound right here, and this is it with 0 effects, nothing running through it. Okay, it sounds okay. It sounds a little bit boxy, and it's super dry. So, you know, for me in this beat, I'd like to really like space that sound out and just make it sound a lot fuller. Obviously, the way to do that is by adding some reverb. Now, let me show you how to do that. So add that reverb to the bus. Okay, here we go. And this has already been done. In fact, let me just delete it and start again so you guys can see. delete. Okay, so this is the default setting. I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly how to do this. Now, first thing again, and to be honest, you should do this whenever you start playing with Reverb, is just go from left to right. It makes things a lot easier. So the first thing you want to do is crank that low cut knob up. Again, anywhere around here is cool. Play around with the high knob, and whilst you're doing this, just play the melody, have it on loop so you can hear how it's, you know, sounding in real time. Turn down the high cut a little bit, not all the way down, because you want to have that top end coming through as well. That's what's going to spread the whole sound out. Play with the size. 9 times out of 10 I would turn the size way up, turn it up to around like 75%, 80%. I turn the bass down. I don't want any low reverb frequencies coming through. That's just going to muddy up the mix. Play with the decay. I'd normally turn up the decay a bit, not a whole lot. You don't want it just like, you know, completely overriding the whole beat. Just turn it up to like, I don't know, between like 2 and 4 seconds. And the damp, you can play with that if you want it to be a bit less what's the word, if you want it to be a bit less high end, then turn that damp down. If you want that high end in there, then keep it, you know, a bit further up. And then once you're happy with these settings, then you can play with the early reflection, the wet knob. You maybe even turn the dry down a tiny bit, but again, just find a space that the reverb sits nicely in. And yeah, let me just play this now and I'll get it sounding right, and then you can hear what it sounds like before and after. Boom, there we go. So this is what it sounded like before. And after. And as you can hear, that's some pro level shit now. That's sounding real, like realistic, sort of spaced out. It's really widened up the sound, and all we've done is add one plugin, one stock plugin, really easy on CPU. You know the score. So yeah, that is all 3 tips. So if you want to soften up those leads, do the first one. If you want to give the drums more depth, do the second one. If you want to use heavy reverb but not make it sound muddy, then use the third one. If you use the third one on your drums, then I will punch you all in the face. Do not use that third one on the drums. It just doesn't sound great at all. So yeah, that is the tutorial. Now if you're still with me, I have some good news for you producers watching this video, and that is, drum roll, we're doing another beat critique. That's right, we're doing another beat critique. It's been way too long. So if you want to be part of the next beat critique, here's how you can enter the beat critique. First step, make sure you're subscribed with the bell ticked. That's really useful. Second step, send a beat to my email. The email's in the description below. Fourth step, wait. Did I say fourth step? No. Third step, wait. Be patient, okay? And I will take a look at all of the beat submissions. I will take a listen to all of them, and I will put them on the video if you submit before I start recording the video. So I'll give you guys a couple of days to get those beats submitted. If it's past a week and you've watched this video, then I do apologize, but you are too... Jesus Christ. I do apologize, but you are too late. I'm sorry. I am truly sorry. But that's just the way life goes, I'm afraid. So yeah, get those beats submitted. I hope you guys enjoyed this reverb tutorial. Again, if you want to be part of the beat critique, or if you just enjoyed the tutorial, then help me by subscribing, and that way I can keep helping you guys in return. So help me to help you. And yeah, that is all for today, my good producers. I will see you guys in the next one.